those things happen. They happen all the time. And when you talk to girls one-on-one, you're like, yeah, me too. But it's not really something everyone talks about, like you said. But also, I think it's just a reminder. I'm glad we're doing this podcast because I think it's a reminder for women who have been in this world for a few years that it's just a reminder to be open and nice to new girls or to new people, because you never know what people are going through and how they're feeling. So if someone does, ask like, hey, can I come? Like, yeah, extend the invitation. Like, I think it's nice to take, I guess, new people under your wing.
What gets us through this crazy hockey journey is our amazing community of women. Inspired by our online network, Breaking the Ice is a platform created to connect us even more as we share our stories, our passions, our tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts for all things hockey, and so much more. For hockey expats, by hockey expats. So lace them up and tune in for a new episode every Wednesday. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. My favorite line ever because I say it every single week, but there you go. This is your daily reminder to stop what you're doing and get outside, okay? Because I was inside for I think 2 days, and I started going stir crazy. This morning, my dogs were wrestling for over an hour, and I was like, we have to get out. It was so cold. I didn't want to go outside, but I did, and I felt so much better after. So if you're sitting on your couch, not wanting to go outside, but knowing that you need to, throw some headphones on, throw on your winter coat, and go for a nice long walk. This is a super good episode. I am so excited for you to hear it. I honestly do not even have a long intro this morning. I do not want to spoil anything. Today, Layne and I are talking about friendships. And friendships outside of this hockey world, friendships inside this hockey world, all of the good stuff. And you know what? It's really something that I have found that not a lot of people talk about. But I think that it's something that we all want to hear about. So I hope you enjoy this episode and let us know what you think. Share your story if you're loving it. Enjoy. All right, Layne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You guys, this is our second time recording it. We actually recorded an entire episode and our audio was not connecting. So now I just feel like I'm talking to an old friend and having episode number 2 come out. So welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so funny that we've already done this, but thank you.
I know, I was so bummed I lost that content, but now I just feel like we're going to have an even greater episode and one that we can publish.
Me too.
So Layne came to me with this idea about doing an episode about friendships, and I loved it right off the bat, but I'm not going to lie, it made me a little bit nervous just because, I had this feeling like I kind of had to tread lightly with what I say, just because you never know who's listening or if someone would take offense to something. But lately I've actually stumbled across a lot of podcasts about adult friendships, and I found myself really resonating with these conversations, and I feel like it's an important thing to discuss. And it's also something that people don't really discuss. So I'm really excited to just dive into this topic with you today, and hopefully people can, resonate with it as well.
Totally, me too. I'm excited.
So when we chatted before, you mentioned you felt like you and your husband were kind of different from your friends back home, and you envied how stable their lives were, which I can totally relate to that as well. How did it make you feel when you were comparing your lifestyle to your friends that had a little bit more stability?
It's so crazy because we jumped right into this hockey life right after college. And even at that time, I thought I knew kind of what the lifestyle was like. But then, when you're in it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is nothing like what I was expecting. Well, at least for my husband. And so Kyle and I, we had no stability. It was every couple of weeks he was on a different team in the coast, where he started in the ECHL, and it became just it wasn't right for him, it wasn't right for me, so I stayed back in his hometown because I couldn't personally keep up with the move. I'm like, "I don't know how you're doing this and playing."
Mhm.
And at that time, I didn't have any friends in his hometown. I was just staying with his parents. So I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so alone. And social media is king. So I see all my friends still together and they're getting coffees and pizza. And I'm like, oh my God, like I am missing out on everything.
Mhm.
And then, down the road, my friends are getting houses and building their careers. And I'm like, oh my God, like we don't have any of this. So it's like, it's so hard not to compare. And then I think the older I got and the longer we've been doing this, the more I'm just like, okay, this is our normal. And I have to stop comparing because it's two completely different lifestyles. So I think there just came a time where I was like, I need to stop myself.
I know. It's really hard. I think like the older you get too, you kind of want that stability, and of course like it's such an incredible experience, but it is hard sometimes because twice a year we pack our crap up, we get on a plane, we move across the country, then we move back and we're there for a couple months and then we pack, it's like it's hard to find that like balance, I guess, because our lives are so not balanced. But yeah, I totally relate to that. And it is hard when you see people on social media that kind of just got to stay in one place. And it seems like you long for that when you're not doing that.
Yes, for sure. And then there's like a moment where, like, after years, I was just like, okay, like, you have to just be in the present and acknowledge like the amazing experiences that you're going through with your husband and how they might think it's cool that we're doing this. So it's like there's comes a time where you have to just focus on your own life and stop comparing with others.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it was probably easier to do that before social media was a thing, because now everybody's posting their whole lives, right? Like on stories, and you constantly can see what people are doing and where they're going. And yeah, I wonder what this hockey life was before before
Oh,
iPhones were a thing.
I know, and no one posts about the bad things on social media. On Instagram, everyone's having a great time. So I'm like, oh my god.
Exactly. And that's why I'm like just love talking to people in this community, because you can hear about those things as well, because you're right, like people don't share when things are bad. Or I don't know if you've noticed this either, but now I feel like this is total sidebar, but like on social media, it almost seems to be like a thing where people are sharing struggles because it's a thing to do.
Touche.
Have
Yeah.
you ever noticed
Mhm.
that? Like it's like people are it doesn't seem like authentic.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Yep.
mean?
No, I think you're right. I think now everyone feels comfortable. They're like, okay, like everyone, like Instagram life isn't always real. There's filters or space tune. So it's like, all right, let me show you like my struggles. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think it now that's like a trend too. So
Yeah, like it's like I mean, not to say that people are doing that for like attention or anything like that. Like I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even put this part in. It's just where my mind just wandered to right now.
no, I agree with you though. I do.
But it's like it seems like people might be doing that just because everybody else is doing that, or because they see,
Yeah.
oh, this person's sharing this, so I'm going to do this too, because maybe it will get me a lot of likes if I share like a hard time I'm going through, but it's not like aligned with them. Like I don't know. Anyways,
Yes.
kind of going on a
Yeah, no,
tangent.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Total sidebar. Anyways, but so how have like some of your friendships outside of this hockey world changed since you have been moving all over the world?
I think it becomes quite clear like literally your first season wherever you are in this hockey world that who your friends are because they're the ones who continuously reach out. They're the ones that are asking how you're doing, how your husband or boyfriend's doing. And so I know I have like a core group of 5 girls I've been friends with for years, and they're the ones I'm always talking to. But sadly, there have been friends that I'm just like, yo, like, where have you been? Like, I reach out. I feel like I'm the ultimate communicator. I'm always like, okay, I haven't spoken to so and so in a while. Let me reach out. And and sadly, when I've done that with some friends, they just haven't reached reach back, or it takes like a week. They're like, oh, hey, sorry, I was busy. I'm like, oh, like it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of shows you like, their priorities in the friendship. And it is hurtful. Like I've definitely lost contact with friends because Kyle and I move so much, and that it's heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah, like one-sided kind of friendships. You feel,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes I find myself questioning, like, maybe if we didn't move around this often, I could still keep up with my friends more often, or people that I used to be friends with. But at the end of the day, I feel like the people that continuously keep showing up for you, like, it's like you said, it's going to become like really apparent. And it also makes you notice like who's not really stepping up and showing up for you.
Right, for sure. I remember I confronted my one friend. We lived together like after college, and I'm like, "What's going on? Like, why aren't we friends anymore?" And she was just like, "Oh, like I'm a bad long distance friend." And I'm like, "Well, that's not a thing. Like, if you care, you care."
Hmm. Do you feel like in friendships, like do you feel like comfortable confronting people?
I do. I don't know if it's like an astrological thing or just me thinking too much in my own head. Like I just have to know. So I feel like I'm always the person that's like, "Hey, what's up? Are you mad at me?" Or like, "Did I say something stupid?" Like I just need to know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like I'm such a Libra. What's your horoscope sign?
I'm a Capricorn.
Okay. What are the traits of that?
It's like confident and outgoing, but
Confident and outgoing.
but like I also get nervous, so like I overthink myself and it's like oblivion, and then I'm like, I can't take it. I just have to know. So,
Oh my gosh.
are you
Okay.
the same way?
Well, I'm a Libra. So they're like very indecisive, like
Oh,
they don't like confrontation, which is so true. Like,
okay.
I don't know. I feel like I definitely like pick my battles. Like like I like to keep the peace. Like I don't like to
Hmm.
confront, like it, because it makes me uncomfortable, and that's something I just have to work on. It's like my throat chakra. Like it's like I have issues speaking my truth, like if I have a problem sometimes, and then I'll just like
Hmm.
it'll build up in my head, and then I like can't, it becomes overwhelming to me, as opposed if I just confronted it head on and I'm like, hey, you know what, like I'm feeling this way.
Hmm.
I would love to talk about it, and I feel like people would be so receptive to it, but I don't know, it's like kind of scary sometimes, like addressing situations too, because you never know like how that person is going to take it.
Of course. And it's hard to get the words out right, especially if you're nervous. And then you're like, and then if you start crying, you're like, I look ridiculous. So it's just like, I'm just going to be quiet. So I totally understand.
Like, how would you address a conflict with a friend? Like, do you have any like ways that you find work for you?
Okay. So yes, I've done this before in the hockey world. On a
Ooh, even better.
team. Yeah, it's very honestly, and I thought a lot about how I was going to address a situation because I didn't want conflict in the team. There were so many girls and they were all so nice, but we were all very, very different. So there were some cliques. And at first, I just really loved this girl. She was just so cool and she was so beautiful and so outgoing. And then eventually I just realized, like, oh my gosh, we're totally different. Like the more I got to know her, I was like, okay, we don't really have much in common. Like, so I just kind of slowly stopped hanging out with her, but I didn't want it to be a big deal. I didn't want it to be in a way that was like, I'm over this, like goodbye, and I'm gonna be rude to you. Like, the hockey world's so small, and I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I I just kind of kept my distance, and obviously it became like an issue. Like you hear snickering. So I'm like, I'm just gonna confront this. So I just told her like, listen, I feel like there's a lot going on, but I respect you. I think you're amazing. I just feel like we're on two different paths. We're different ages. I have different things I want to focus on, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we're civil, we're cool. I don't really have much in common with you, and I just hope you're okay with that. And she was not okay with it, but I felt better that I spoke my truth in a very calm way because I do like to curse. So I feel like I handled that maturely for me.
Yeah. So how, and then how did she respond?
She was really upset. I think she was hoping that I would be like, "Oh, no, girl, like, we're cool," but I couldn't lie. I can't I have a face where it's like, you know what I'm thinking, so I
Mhm.
couldn't do that to myself.
Yeah. Well, good for you, I mean, for speaking your truth because it's obviously, like, that's an uncomfortable thing to do, and I'm sure that wasn't easy to say that, like, it's not a fun thing to
No.
do, and I'm sure you were, like, thinking about it nonstop.
Yeah, like, had a rash. Like, my husband's like, "Oh my god, like, figure it out." Like, it's just like, but it's just you don't wanna start anything, but you also wanna just stay true to yourself, so it's very difficult,
Yeah. Entering into this hockey world, have you ever struggled to make friends, like, on a team?
for sure. Especially being a North American in Germany. My husband's played in Germany for the past 5 seasons, so especially on I don't know, teams in smaller towns. Not everyone speaks English, or maybe there's only one other import, and maybe they're there, maybe they're not. So that's always difficult because you're like, "Hi, does anyone speak English?" And sometimes they don't. So I'm like, "Okay." And then because of social media, you'll see them like, like having wine together or going on walks. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it must be so nice just to have a girlfriend that understands your language." So
Mhm.
it can be difficult.
Yeah, do you feel like that's a situation where you would maybe say something or, like, like, say, "Hey, like, I wanna be included, like, let me know next time," like,
Yeah,
that kinda thing?
for sure. Like I know I've definitely like Instagram message like, this looks amazing. Where is this? Like, can you please show me next time? I'd love to do it. So I think especially women in this world, this community that we're in, you have to kind of stick your neck out because not everyone's going to know what you want to do or how you're feeling. So you have to, even if you're an introvert, just kind of at least approach one person to kind of get into a group or just to kind of make a friend that way because or else you're just gonna, be lonely.
Mhm. Yeah. Again, with social media, like, when you see people hanging out, but yet, like, I also do that. Like, it's
Mhm.
like it's this weird thing where you wanna share what you're doing, but you also don't want people to feel excluded, but, like,
Mhm.
you also don't wanna not share because you're worried about what everyone's gonna think.
I've realized that there's just so many sometimes some teams, there's so many girls and you can't always hang out with everyone or please everyone and everyone has different schedules. So I think eventually you just realize like, you share your life, you include who you can and just carry on. Because if you're, it does get tense sometimes because yeah, you see people hanging out and everything, but I mean, share your life and be proud of it too.
Yeah, for sure. Was there ever a time that, like, it really got to you that you felt, like, kind of on the outs?
Um, One time, I think there was one team, we were new to the team, and I just remember hearing snickerings of, like, I don't know, people were meeting up and they're like, oh, it's in the group chat, it's in the wife group chat. And I'm like, oh, there's a wife group chat? Like, I had no idea. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't think I'm in it. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, how do I approach this? So then I just kind of waited, and then people brought it up again, like a later week. And I was like, is there any way someone can add me? Like,
Oh.
and they were like, "Oh yeah, like we'll tell so and so." Like, I don't know how that happened. I'm like, "No, I don't care. It's just that's fine." But so and honestly, like it kind of took like a few weeks too. So I was like, "Oh my God, like they don't like me or they talking shit." So
Mhm.
it's like that, it doesn't feel nice.
That, like, mental spiral is so real, like, I don't know about you, but, like, when I think someone's mad at me, like, it, like, eats me alive, like, I get, like, such bad anxiety, like, like, in that situation, like, I would have been, "Oh my gosh, they don't like me," like, but sometimes people just, like, don't even think about it until you say something, right? Like, they're like, "Oh, like, I didn't even realize, like, I'll add you right now," or, like, I don't know.
Yes, for sure. Yes, it eats you alive. That's why it's like, okay, if you don't approach something, I'm not going to leave my house. So
Yeah.
it's so difficult.
Yeah. I remember there was this, and I know I told you, like, last time when we were recording that I didn't know, like, how to say it, but, like, remember that situation where I felt, like,
Mhm.
excluded? But I don't know, I feel like I wanna be open about it because I mean, I'm not like name dropping or like saying any teams or anything, but there was
Mhm.
a season where I felt like I really put myself out there. I came in late during the season. And so like the groups had already kind of become established, which is fine. Like obviously I came in late, so that's to be expected. But I didn't really feel like included when I showed up. And I felt like I kept saying, like, hey, I would love to join. I'd love to come get drinks before the games. I would love to get dinner. Like, let me know when you guys are doing something. You know what I mean? Because I would like show up at the games by myself all the time and I felt
Yes.
really lonely. And I remember I kept saying it. And I think I said it like literally probably 10 times to the point where I would tell my husband, I'm like, I'm embarrassed. Like, I literally
Oh.
feel embarrassed because I've said this so many times. And it's like, why am I even trying to put myself out there when it's not reciprocated? Like, clearly, they don't
Mhm.
want me to be there. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what it comes down to, because there's only so many times you're going to say, like, please invite me somewhere. And
Yeah.
like, where people aren't doing it back, that you're going to be like, okay, well, screw it. I'm just not going to say anything anymore. And that was really hard for me because I like community, obviously, but it's
Mhm.
just like I didn't have that that year. Sorry, not
Mhm.
this year. It's definitely not this year. I didn't have it that year, and I just felt like this disconnect from the girls, from the team. I honestly, like, it made me cry a few times because I just felt like I didn't have friends. So that was just really hard because I felt like no one really ever reached out to me.
Mhm.
Anyways, I just kind of felt called to share that because, again, it's not something that people talk about because who are you going to talk about this with? Because if you're talking about it, then it feels clicky and you don't want to be like bashing other people on the team because, again, it's like a
Mhm.
family aspect. But it it is hard because I'm sure that there's other people that can totally relate to like what you and I are talking about, but like don't really know who to say it to.
Of course. First of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's heartbreaking. But those things happen. They happen all the time. And when you talk to girls one on one, you're like, yeah, me too, me too. But it's not really something everyone talks about, like you said. But also, I think it's just a reminder. I'm glad we're doing this podcast because I think it's a reminder for women who have been in this world for a few years that it's just a reminder to be open and nice to new girls or to new people because you never know what people are going through and how they're feeling. So if someone does, ask like, hey, can I come? Like, yeah, extend the invitation. Like, I think it's nice to take, I guess, new people under your wing.
And like, you know what? You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. Like, I'm sure
Hmm.
I'm not everybody's cup of tea, or you're not everybody's cup of tea, but like, just trying to like be kind because like everyone, again, is like not living where they're from, where their friends are from, where their family is, like, and it's isolating. So I think, I mean, you don't even have to hang out, but just like checking in or like sending a text, like, hey, how are you doing, or whatever, it goes a long way.
For sure. And that just reminded me, my first year in Germany, it was the same thing. There's another import wife, and she had been in the expat world for a few years, and this was my first year, and she was like, Layne, like, not everyone's going to like you. And I'm like, oh my God, like no one has ever said that to me. It's just like, no, like it's true. Like you're not gonna like everyone either. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're on the same team because your men play together. That doesn't mean you're gonna be an automatic best friend or family. And as much as that'd be amazing, like that's not always the case. So it's great to have a mutual respect for everyone and just be civil, but that doesn't mean you're gonna like leave holding hands. And I was like, wow, thank you for saying that because it's very true.
And there are people that you meet like along the way that are lifelongers, right? Like, you know, they're going to be my lifelong friend. They're going to be in my life forever. But there's also like outside of the hockey world, you meet friends because it's organic, right? Like, you meet people, maybe you're taking a yoga class and you strike up a conversation with someone and you get along really well. And then you guys start hanging out. Like, it's like an organic connection, and that's like what
Hmm.
kind of progresses the friendship. But with hockey, you move somewhere and then you have a set group of people. And honestly, like, I think everyone is like usually pretty great. Like, I like pretty nice, like, but again, like, not everybody is always going to be best friends, and that's okay. I think just being kind and like knowing that we're all going through hard times, especially this year, but just like Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because it's like a built-in group as opposed to like meeting it on your own terms at an
Yes,
organic like situation. Transit. So how are you 31?
I am.
Okay. So what was it like kind of transitioning from making friends from your 20s to your 30s or just like maybe losing friends from your 20s to your 30s like when you're moving around so much?
Oh, it's been a wild ride. I think, like, in my 20s, I cared so much. I wanted to be everyone's friend. Like, I always stayed true to myself. I never like pretended to like things just to be someone's friend. I just wanted people around me. Like I wanted to be around people just so like I didn't feel lonely. But now that I'm 31, I just don't care anymore. Like I think I just lost the effort. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like sometimes I just don't have enough effort for myself, let alone other people." So I think some of it comes with age. I also think the other part of
Hmm.
it comes from experience. Instead of getting like a little jealous that other girls are hanging out, now I'm just like, cool, like cute, like that sounds fun. But I'm not kind of like I don't know, like wishing like or like, do they like me still? Like I think I've changed a lot in my 30s. I
Yeah.
think I'm like, all right, I have my core group of friends, or like if I meet a hockey girlfriend or wife that I really get along with, I'm like, all right, cool, we're gonna be lifelong buddies. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go out of my way and just kill myself to be friends with people anymore.
Yeah, I think like even that story that I shared, like that I was definitely younger, and I think if that happened now, I don't think I would be as sensitive to it just because I think you're right. Like as you age, like you do kind of take things like less personally, I guess. I mean, things
Mhm.
definitely can add up for sure, but like uh, it does make a difference when you are moving into a different stage of your life.
Totally. And I'm sure with you, I mean, you're a new mom and you have a dog. Like I feel like you're like, yo, I have other things that are way more important than being upset over a glass of wine or something. Like for me, I look at it like that. I'm just like, okay, there are way bigger things in the world than for me to be upset or wanting a friendship to work out or something like that. But again, I think that comes with age and experience.
Hmm. I was actually listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about. It was actually about friendships too. Ironically, it like came out this week. I was like, oh, cool. It was like one of the podcasts I followed. But they were talking about how when you do become a mom, which was relatable for me, is that because it's kind of like a hectic time where you're transitioning like into motherhood, it is kind of hard to like keep up with your friendships. And I
Mhm.
it is like kind of a struggle because I realize like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Like I haven't reached out, and I care about them and I love them and I want them to know that I'm thinking of them, but it's just like this really hard time where like honestly it's like not my number one priority to be like texting people. And it was a good reminder to me to like try to be more mindful and like when I do have downtime and I'm thinking about like a close friend that I love and care about, to like send them a text or just let them know like, hey, I'm busy but I'm thinking of you. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Like, is there ever a time where you feel like you're kind of like on the go and you realize like you haven't talked to people in a while and like that kind of thing?
For sure. And I think you said that beautifully, but I also would hope that friends understand like, okay, she's a new mom, like she has a lot going on. So, but that's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing when you have friends that care truly, like they understand.
Mm-hmm.
But for sure, I mean, most of my best friends have kids and I currently don't. And so I know like when I sometimes relate to texting me, like I don't take it personally anymore. I'm like, okay, I mean, they're running after a child, they're busy, like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it does feel a little like lonely because you're like, oh, like, I miss the days where they would answer me back in 5 seconds. But
Right.
then you snap out of it and you're like, okay, like life is continues on.
Like I totally know how you feel though, because I remember like before I was pregnant or anything, and like a few of my close friends started having kids, it does change the friendship. And
Yeah.
it is hard because like especially like depending on how close you are, it's like it shifts. It's just like when someone enters like a new relationship with a significant other, right? Like it shifts your friendships. And so it's like, it's always like evolving. But I think that just goes back to like what we were talking about, like, you know, who's going to be consistent in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say better myself. Exactly.
But it is hard. It's like, because you miss that person and you want to, like, you don't want things to change between the two of you. But I guess, like, what's that quote that's like, every friend is like a, I'm totally gonna butcher this. Like, I feel like
What?
every time a quote comes into my mind on this podcast, I like try to say it, and it's like I really should write it down before. But it's like I don't, and then I try to quote it, but it's like every friend is like a season. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna Google this right now.
You can do this.
Okay, hold on. Please hold. People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Boom.
Ooh, that's deep. I like that.
Have you heard that before?
I mean, honestly, probably, but my memory is so upsetting, so I can't tell you the truth. But
It's so true though. Like, if you think about every single friendship that you have, even like if you think that person might be like a lifelong friend, but it winds up not being that way, they came into
Mhm.
your life for a reason, or like a season, like a period of time in your life where you needed them, where your lives were aligned, but then you just like drifted.
Yes, that's a great point. And I think the friends are in your life for a lifetime. I think it's like a huge testament to your friendship because if you can get through breakups, marriages, whatever, kids, like moving, like that just proves how close the bond really is, you know?
Hmm. Can we talk about couple friends? Like, how amazing that
Sure.
is?
Oh, it's the best.
How fun is it when you find another couple that you like to hang out with, you and your husband?
It's like a high. I can't describe it. Everything just it just connects. I'm like, I want to hang out with so and so. He's like, well, me too. I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
It's perfect because it's hard. Like, I don't know, like when there's two, when like you have a close friend or your husband has a close friend, but like you might not vibe with like their significant other, or like your husband doesn't vibe with their significant other. It's like kind of like you're not going to hang out like the four of you, right?
Yes.
So then that's like your friend that you hang out with like on your own spare time. But then it's like you get the best of both worlds because you can hang out with your significant other and you can hang out with your friend at the same time.
Yes. And you're probably hanging out more because it's like it's just easier like all together. So it really is the best. You're totally right. You know what? That's an underrated feeling.
It
It really
so
is.
is. And you usually meet those people too, like a lot of the time through hockey.
Yes, yes. I love that. Like when Kyle connects with someone, I'm like, does he have a girlfriend or wife? And then
Yeah.
I meet them and I'm like, they're awesome. And it's just it's so nice.
And it's fun too because like when that happens during the hockey season, then it's like, especially if you are living in a different country, it's like the four of you can go out to dinner together, the four of you can go like on like vacation together or whatever. Like, and it's so
Yes.
fun.
It really is the best. That's a good point.
Do you have like any friends that you met in a prior season that you still like get together with or like ever go travel with?
Honestly, like I'm trying to think. Okay, yes, we have, especially in the Oberliga, like the first week of November is a break. So we tend to like do a vacation with like one of the couples or
RIP.
RIP. Yeah, this season not so much, but yes. And even when, bans are lifted, I know there's like couples that were like, all right, like get in the car, we're gonna make a trip. So I can't wait.
Yeah, we have my shout out to like one of my best friends, Kelly, but my husband is best friends with her husband and we're best friends. Like they were both in our weddings and we all live in Boise in the summer. And
That's
it's,
amazing.
yeah, like they just moved there or they just bought a house there last summer and like it's super close to our house. So we're just like four little peas in a pod and like they just had a little boy and we just had a little, or he's a year now, but the fun part about it is like they play in Germany. So like when we do have those breaks and like they coexist, like we do try to meet up and like up until we started having kids, like we do a girls trip every year to like a new country. And I don't know, like that's so fun because you just like it's fun having those friends that you can just like that make the season go by a little bit quicker sometimes, right?
Yes, it kind of makes you feel like you're back at home, like, and you know that you're going to continue being friends in regardless the country. That's really cool that you guys like live close to each other too back home. That's so cool.
Exactly. You're right. It's like a little piece of home. You're like, oh, I feel like maybe I'm in the US for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, because life's normal. You guys can do, the things that you would do back home. It's nice.
Yeah. Do you do you ever feel lonely like during the season, missing your friends back home?
Yeah, I feel like every like around this time, like the holidays are gone. It's
Mm.
cold and it's dark, and you're like, oh my God. And being abroad, you miss so much. You miss weddings and engagements and babies. And I mean, there's times I just missed my one of my best friend's wedding and in October, and it was so hard for me because I was in the wedding, but because of traveling, it just wasn't safe. And I literally just FaceTimed like one of the bridesmaids. I'm like, just put me on the phone in the background. Like I just want to be a part of the magic. But
Oh.
I I think in that moment I was like, wow, this sucks sometimes because you do miss so much. And a part of me, I'm just like, oh, I hope they know that like if I could be there, I would. Like I'm not just skipping out. Like it is hard to get away when you are in this hockey world. For us, like we're in Germany, so I'm like, okay, like flights can be expensive. How long am I going to be gone? And it's really hard. And I just hope my friends understand. But again, it's like if you have the right people in your life, they do. But it is
Mhm.
hard.
I know. That's whenever like someone gets engaged and I'm like, do you have a date yet? Like, is it in the summertime?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
like the first thing I ask. They're like, oh, I'm thinking
Yes.
like spring. I'm like, can't be there, sorry. Or like, not spring,
Yes.
but just like the fall. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have to fly out late.
Yes. I'm like, okay, oh, you're pregnant? Are you doing June? Like, please say June. And be like,
Yeah.
no. Yes. One of my best friends got engaged and we're like, that's amazing. When are you thinking? Like, tell me. She's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
When's the bachelorette party?
Yes. So like I need to plan. Yes. It does get very lonely.
Yeah, for sure. And like this summer, one of my best friends whose wedding I'm in, she's getting married like mid-August. And I think Charlie will probably, wherever we sign, would have to be out here by then. But so I'll fly out late. But I'm like, you know what? It's actually okay because I was here in July last year and I was dying at how hot it was. Like I literally said at that time, I am not coming out here again in July. It is way too hot.
Yes.
Like, are you kidding? Have
That
people heard of
is
air conditioner?
yes. That's so funny.
So I'm
Yes.
actually like totally fine that I have to fly out later, even though I'm like gives me anxiety flying by myself. But I'm like, I don't even care. If I can take another month of air conditioning, I will.
Absolutely. It's worth it.
Hallelujah. Do you find that it's hard to like stay in contact with old friends? I think it's hard for people to stay in contact with us.
Yes, I do think it's the other way around. I think a lot of people think they're like, oh well, the time difference. I'll text them later, and then they just don't end up texting. Or, I'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and I'll have messages. I'm like, oh girl, like I'm not going to message or like respond right now. I'm going to wait. And then there is a disconnect sometimes because of the time difference. But it's I forgot the question. Oh, sorry.
Well,
How it's
it was a very clear question. How could you forget? I'm just kidding. It was very
no,
very
no.
all over the
How
place.
yeah, how it is okay, so it's easy to stay in contact because of social media and because there's just so many ways like texting, FaceTime, but I do think it's just like the effort. Like what do you want out of this friendship and how important are they to you in your life? And I think I would hope that if you show that kind of like love for a friend that they would return it.
Mhm. Yeah, I have like kind of a love hate with the social media with things like
Totally.
that because I feel like in one way because I do it too, like when someone posts a story, like you send an emoji back with like heart eyes, which is great. It's like, "Oh, love this picture, thinking of you." Like, right?
Yes.
But then also I feel like it's hard because then that can be taken as that person's checking in, but they're really just sending an emoji.
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah, like is that considered like being like having good communication as a friend, or is that just Yeah, just being like, I saw what you posted. That's a good
I
point.
I think you need a combination of both. Like
Yeah.
I think you need to be able to like check in. Like it doesn't have to be all the time, but say you check in like once a month, do a little catch up over text, and then also be like responding to stories to show that you care. Like that's so stupid that we were even like have to talk about like responding to stories, but it's just like that's what this generation is and does. But it's like, okay, so you know, you're checking in and then you're responding to the stories that shows like you're caring and you're present. But if you're just responding to the stories, do you think that's like enough to like withhold a relationship?
Yeah, you're right. Social media sometimes is so pathetic because like my husband, like, oh, have you spoke to so and so in a while? I'm like, I mean, just on Instagram. But like you said, it's like a double tap or like a like. So, and it's pathetic because it's like if someone from home like tags me in a meme, I'm like, that's so cute that you thought of me. But it's just so ridiculous. But I think it does need to be more like friendships can be so deep, and I crave like those deep conversations with friends. Like my husband and I talk so much, but there's just some things only girls will understand or can help you with or relate to. So I do think, I mean, social media checking in is great, but you do have to reach out through text or through phone call. You have to.
Mm-hmm. I
And maybe
agree.
that makes me old, but hey, I think it's true.
No, I agree. I think like it's hard to justify like an emoji over like a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And just even like my friend will post a video of her baby and I'm like, "Oh my God, like what's going on? She's growing so much. I feel like I haven't heard from her." And then I'm like, "Oh my God, Layne, she has a child. Like you should reach out." So then, you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have to do some homework sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because it is interesting because like I was just gonna say sometimes I feel like since having a baby, like which again, like you kind of lose friends sometimes like when you enter a new relationship or you have a baby or like you go through a life change, like right? Like again, going back to what we're saying, like you always figure out like who's in your life long term, but it can be disappointing sometimes when you feel like people aren't checking in, but maybe people think that sending that over social media qualifies as them checking in. But like maybe
Mhm.
it just means that you're not on the same page of like what it means to check in with someone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everyone's different. I guess it's just up to you and like kind of what your expectations are. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting into like a deep rabbit hole thought brain right now. Like,
But
but
it's
maybe.
true.
Yeah.
Those are like the difficulties with like friendship and in like social media. It's confusing.
Yeah, maybe people think, oh, this means that I sent this, so that means that like they know I'm thinking of them. But then the other person's sitting there going, they haven't asked me how I'm doing, or and it's like, but
Yes.
so they think they're fine, the other person doesn't, but they're just not on the same page of what it means to communicate.
Yes. Now that you say that, yes. I even like there was an issue. I don't mind speaking about this because that's my family, but yeah, there was an issue. My mom, she was liking her daughter-in-law's Facebook pictures and like commenting and just, all those things. And then there was like a disagreement in the family, and the my sister-in-law was just like, "Oh, you never reach out." And she's like, "I do on Facebook." So I do think it's just like a disconnect of like what you think reaching out is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I feel like this conversation's funny because there's so many things we could talk about within the friendship realm. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's just so much, like there's so much.
Yes, there's a large spectrum.
And I actually just looked at the Instagram because I said, does anybody have anything that you want us to talk about? And someone just
Ooh.
said long distance friendships,
Uh,
which we kind of have been talking about that a little bit. Um, do you have anything to add about just in general about long distance friendships?
it's just like a relationship. I think with long distance friendships, you have to put in like the work. I'm not saying like every second, like, what are you doing? I'm drinking almond milk. Like, just like maybe a weekly update. Like, this sounds pathetic, but if you if a friend is upset with you or maybe you're upset with them, like just make a reminder, like every Monday, check in, just, see what's going on and just make the effort. And if they don't reciprocate it, I mean, then maybe stop putting in the effort because you're killing yourself or we're trying to keep a relationship that's totally one-sided. So I think maybe just keeping like little reminders to check in. I think I like to look at it as like a mental health check-in sometimes. Like I realize, especially with COVID happening, I'm just like, okay, I haven't heard from my friend in a long time. Like, let me just make sure everything's cool. So I think it's having that outlook, I think is like a little bit more important too, just making sure everyone's okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Long distance friendships have to have effort from both people. Like
Yes.
you have to put in the effort and the other person has to put in the effort. And you know what? Life happens. Like you go through different things. Like your lives are not always going to be like parallel. Is it
Yes.
parallel? Yeah, like I'm like, hold on, let me
Yeah.
get my geometry out right now.
I
But
know.
it's
I
like
can't even spell parallel.
but I'm just thinking of those trolls that could be listening that are like, oh my God, they don't even know geometry and they don't even know how to
You,
spell.
they
Do they
want to
do
be
anything?
wrong.
Yeah, do they do
I'm
anything
so
with their
cool.
lives besides be a
I
wag?
bet. Stop living off your husband's dime. The fuck out
Oh
of here.
man, too
Okay,
good.
sorry.
No, it's okay. No, totally valid. Yeah, like your lives are not
Every
always going to be like going the same way. Like it's the thing with hockey friends is like you guys are kind of living similar lifestyles. So I would say like yes, there are friends that you're going to take with you for life from hockey, but that is kind of sometimes like maybe can fall into the category of it's a friend for a season, right? Because
True.
you're in the same season, you're in the same lifestyle, your husbands have the same job, but you might not always be as close to those people as you are when you're with them in the same location. And then there's the lifelong friends that you kind of build over time and you like gain that trust, and but those friendships require a lot of maintenance.
Totally.
Like you
Yes.
have to keep checking in. And there's times where like I don't know about you, but I'll be thinking of a friend and I just like I it could be the time difference, it could be like I don't know what it like just something, and I'm not texting until they text me and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And then like that's when I'll be like, "I'm so sorry I haven't talked to you in so long. It's been so crazy over here. Like, how are you?" You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So sometimes it takes like that other person reaching out first to like remind you that you need to reach out more.
Yes, I love that you said that. That's so true. And I think like I have friends that sometimes I don't speak to like every month, but then when I catch up, I'm like, yo, what's going on? Then it's like no
Exactly.
time has gone by, but it just reminds you like, okay, we're good. And like we should, check in more often. Yeah.
And I love that too. Like, I love those friends that you just know, like, no hard feelings. Like, if we're not talking all the time, like, it's just because we're busy and we know that and we still love each other. But when we can talk and our schedules align and we're able to, like, exchange some texts, it's the best.
Oh, it is so great. Yes. And then it just reminds you like, oh, I love this person. I'm so glad we're in each other's life. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like we added a lot of good content here.
Good. Me too. I think it's all very relatable, truly.
Yeah, I tried to like not have a filter on it all because it's like I don't know, these are the things that like I want to hear about, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to hear about the struggles that people have in friendships because friendships are like relationships. Like there's going to be like ebbs and flows and there's going to be challenges and there's going to be conflict and there's going to be like amazing times too.
For sure. And this is like a topic that can relate to it doesn't matter what league you're in, what country you're in. Everyone is going to have an issue or a question about friendship. And the older you get, the more you realize who you're friends with and who's important to you and who you want in your life. So I think this is a very important topic.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What would you say are the top 3 qualities that you look for in a friend?
Ooh, oh my gosh. Okay. Same sense of humor. Like,
That's a good
okay, yeah.
one.
Same sense of humor because there's some things I just find hilarious and everyone's like, what the hell? I'm like, like, I need someone to understand. Okay, so same sense of humor. Oh wow, okay.
I'm really putting you on the spot.
Loyalty, I'm a very loyal person, like to a fault. So I kind of expect the same thing. Like if you hurt me, I sound like such an asshole, but like I just won't speak to you again. Like I just like, okay. So yeah, we have, loyalty is important to me. So same sense of humor, like you have to watch Bravo. Loyalty and I think like a mutual understanding of each other's lives and like a give and take. I think that's important too.
Yeah, those are good ones.
What would you say for yourself? Like, what do
Yeah.
you look for in a friend where you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna work?
So I feel like when I meet someone, like I instantly know if I'm gonna like vibe with them.
Yeah, me too.
So like for me, it's like this is gonna sound kind of weird, but just like having that like banter chemistry is like really
Yes.
important to me.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not even or just someone that I can like get deep with. Cause like, I don't know, the older I get, like I'm just not into the fluff.
Yes, for sure.
I like to talk to a lot of people and it's not like I actually like making small talk, like not just like how's the weather, but like I like talking to people. I like learning about people. But I think
Hmm.
like my close to my heart, like ride or die friends, like they have to go deep with me. Like
Yes.
like they have to, you know what I mean? Like it's like there has to be this like we can talk about anything. And I think that's the same thing as like for me, trust is really important. Like what I'm saying to you I
Yeah.
need to trust that you're not going to turn around and go share my like things about myself that I'm telling you and like like privacy. Like you're going to go
Yes.
talk about me or go talk about like what I told you with other people.
Of course. Yep, that's a good one.
So like that's important. I think humor too, just like someone that you can like laugh with and like again just like have that friendship chemistry is like really important.
Right. Like someone that there's no awkward silences. Like it's a comfortable silence if there is one.
But that's not to say like that can totally happen when you first meet someone.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. It's just like an instant connection. Yes.
But you can like there are some of my close friends like at first it's not like that like you're like oh like I don't know and then now you're like best friends with them because sometimes people take a while to like warm up and to step into like who they actually are like in a friendship with you.
Oh my gosh, yes, that just reminded me of a story. I said it last time when we did this interview, and I just remembered it, but it makes me laugh. But yeah, our one season, there's a German girl, and she just like wouldn't really talk to me, and I was like, oh my God, she hates me, and she wouldn't talk to me. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, you know what? She probably doesn't speak English. Okay, that's what it is. Like, okay. And then at the very end of the season, it was the last game of the season. She came up to me and she was like, do you want some Glühwein? And I'm like, excuse me? Like, you speak English? She's like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, why haven't you spoken to me or like even looked at me? And she's like, I don't know. You have like that resting bitch face. And I thought you were mean. And I was like, oh, I wasn't aware. But now we're best friends. And like, she's great. So it just kind of takes like, once you get used to each other, you're like, oh my gosh, like you're amazing. Why did we not speak to each other for an entire year?
Exactly. That's so funny. Yeah, sometimes it just takes a little bit of wine together to like really get to that like to like peel the layers back and then once you like have everything on the line then you're like all right, we good. Like
We're cool.
we're close.
Yes, we're close now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. I can't think of a third thing, but I think everything you said I'm in agreement with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's making me do a lot of reflecting, I feel like. And
I know. Now I'm thinking of my friends. Like, well, why do I like them?
yeah, I feel like I'm gonna get off this call and like text everyone I know and just be like, miss you, thinking of you.
Lilas, yeah.
Are there any like things that turn you off like from a friendship? Like, so there's things that like invite you in. Is there anything that's like a red flag to you that like I don't know, that make you like kind of distance yourself from someone?
For sure. I think especially now that I'm more mature and I know myself and my worth, it breaks my heart when I meet girls that like are derogatory against other women, like maybe like body shaming or even I don't know, like me even like if they cheat on their boyfriend or something like during the season, like those things, I'm just like, oh my God, like I just don't want to be around. I don't align myself with them. And it's hard for me to like respect a person when they're just cruel to, even if they say it in a funny way and they're just joking, but to me it's like not a joke, like that's not something that I find humorous. So when I hear those things, I just immediately check myself out. I'm like, I'm done, because the last thing I need is like, I don't know, that behavior spreading and then it getting back to my husband and him being like, was it true you said like those rude things about so and so? And I just, those things I'm not down with.
Have you heard of the podcast Almost 30?
Yes, I've listened to it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was just listening to this episode like last week called, I don't know if you saw my story because I shared it, but called Healing the Female Friendship Wound. And
Ooh.
this just popped into my mind because I was like, what else? Is there anything else we could talk about? But I wanted to just bring this up if people are listening and want to check it out, because I don't know about you, but like when you're younger, girls are mean. Like when you're in, I think it started for me like in elementary school, like I started noticing cliques, like I'd feel left out. And there are situations where I felt not, I don't want to say bullied because that's kind of like a little bit of an exaggeration for like what I'm talking about, but just like clicky, like bitchy, kind of petty situations that made
Yeah.
me a little bit skeptical of trusting other women. And that's something I've really had to work on as I've gotten older. And I think like finding this community has helped so much because I feel like people are really supportive and like loving and caring. And like everyone I've connected with over the podcast is like so amazing. But it has taken me a while to get to kind of where I am now, where I'm able to like let more people in.
No, that's a great point. Yes,
Do,
because
do you
sadly,
feel that way?
women aren't always nice to each other. Like, it's so easy to be like, empower women and women supporting women, but at the same time, as women, we're not always nice to each other. And that can be really hard. Yeah, especially to like be open and honest with like a person and then hoping they reciprocate or like the energy you're giving out. And yeah, you know what, being a friend and or being a friend, yes, being a girl and wanting to make a friendship, it can be intimidating exactly for that. You don't know who you can trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just it's an interesting episode for anyone that wants to check it out. Healing the female friendship wound, and it's like one of their more recent episodes. But they just talk about like just that. It's like growing up, how like you can have a different perception, but like it's not really like that because I don't know. People when people are younger and immature, like they might be in that stage of life and like maybe they learned it from someone else and so then they do it to someone else and it's like kind of this ripple effect. But as you get older, like you obviously grow out of that and be like, okay, that's not right. But I think it
Yeah,
can alter your trust to letting people in.
for
So it
sure.
was interesting to me to listen to.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Do you have any takeaways or advice for anyone listening about friendships?
Um, I'm just There's a quote, I think I have it at the top of my head. I don't need to Google it, I don't think. But it's like if you're not growing if you're always comfortable, and I think that's very true. I think you need to, in order to grow and to change, just just yeah, I think you just need to kind of get out of your comfort zone sometimes, especially in this hockey world. Just, if you are feeling a little lonely on a team, like feel like just message a person. It doesn't, the worst thing that can happen is for them just to maybe not respond or just be like, next time, like just stick your neck out and be a kind person and just hope for the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like put yourself out there and it's again like don't always wait for other people to make plans. Like sometimes you can be the one initiating a plan, right? Like I think people can be kind of reserved too, like to say, "Hey, do you want to get coffee or want to go to dinner?" but they just wait till someone else offers and put yourself out there. Ask someone to go get coffee, ask someone to go get dinner.
For sure. Like being vulnerable is so scary because it's so crazy because you're like, okay, I'm going to ask her if she wants coffee. It's like asking a person out, you know, but at the same time, like they'll say yeah. And then you can meet up and get to know a person. And it's not that big of a deal when you really think about it. You're just trying to get to know a person. So I think you're never going to know until you just take a dive and just make the first move.
Totally.
I would also say to be nice to yourself because I think as women, we're so hard on ourselves. And I think we overthink so many things, like you and I were just saying, like, oh my gosh, do they like me? Did I say something stupid? Like, I just be nice to yourself and just be mindful. I think that's also important. And I think with this podcast, you're doing such a fantastic job because it is a safe space. It's a safe community. So it's like we can be vulnerable and chit chat about this. And I know that like there's gonna be other women who feel the same way or have been through the same situation. So I do feel like it's a very safe community and like we're not gonna be judged for being honest.
Yeah, and except by Elle Roberts, 92.
I mean, she needs a life, truly. Or
Well, thank
yeah.
you. Thank you so much for coming on the pod again.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
I'm glad we got some good audio this time. If someone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at Hey Guys, It's Fox. It's an old username. I can't describe it, but I'm too lazy to change it. So you can find me on Instagram.
Thank you so much for listening to Breaking the Ice. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review.